crash on Zariah 7. The sky was red and broken. Jake opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt. His ship was on fire, and smoke was rising into the air. Pieces of metal were everywhere. He had crashed. He pulled himself out of the wreckage. The air smelled strange. The trees were tall and purple. The ground was soft and glowing a little. This was not Earth. Jake checked his gear. His helmet was cracked, but his suit was still working. He looked around. No one else from his crew was in sight. Then he heard a noise. A small groan came from behind a rock. Jake walked carefully, holding a sharp piece of metal like a knife. As he got closer, he saw something, or someone. It was a girl. But not human. Her skin was light blue. Her hair was silver. She had long ears and bright green eyes. She wore a strange suit with symbols he didn't understand. Her leg was hurt. She looked at him with fear. Jake lowered his weapon. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't answer. She just stared. Then after a long silence, she said something in her own language. He didn't understand, but her voice was calm. She wasn't angry. She pointed to her leg. It was bleeding. Jake pulled out his med kit. He cleaned the wound and wrapped it. She winced but didn't pull away. When he finished, she gave a small nod. "I'm Jake," he said, tapping his chest. She hesitated, then pointed to herself. "Liari?" Jake smiled. "Nice to meet you, Liari. I guess we're stuck here." That night, the wind grew cold. The temperature dropped fast on this strange planet. Jake shivered as he tried to sleep beside the broken ship. His fire wasn't strong enough. Liari tapped his arm and pointed to her sleeping bag. It looked different. From his alien but warm. She unzipped it and motioned for him to come in. Jake blinked. Are you sure?" She nodded. "Cold. Dangerous." Jake hesitated, but he was freezing. So he slipped inside beside her. The bag was tight, but warm. He could feel her body heat. She didn't say a word. They lay there in silence, listening to the wind howl outside. Then, from far in the forest, a sound came. It was deep, not human. A growl. Jake sat up. "Did you hear that?" Liari's eyes were wide. She grabbed a small device from her belt. A glowing orb appeared in her hand. It looked like some kind of scanner. She whispered something, in her language. Then she looked at Jake. Not alone. Jake grabbed the metal piece he had used before. "What is it?" Liari didn't answer, but she turned off the light and motioned for him to stay quiet. The growling came closer. Branches snapped. Something big was walking nearby. The fire had gone out. They sat in the dark, not breathing. Then, silence. Minutes passed. Jake slowly peeked outside the sleeping bag. He couldn't see anything in the shadows, but he felt it. Something was watching them. Finally, the sound of footsteps moved away. The forest was quiet again. Liari let out a slow breath. Jake looked at her. "What was that?" she whispered. "Hunter." Jake didn't sleep much that night. In the morning, the sun was bright and white. The forest looked calm again, but Jake didn't trust it. He looked around for food, water, and any tools from his ship that might still work. Liari was already awake. She moved slowly because of her leg, but she was careful and smart. She helped him collect gear. She even found a working battery for the scanner. Jake watched her. She was different, not just her face and skin, but the way she moved. She was trained, maybe a soldier, or something else, but she didn't act like an enemy. She shared food with him, small glowing cubes from her pack. He didn't know what they were, but they kept him full. They didn't speak much, but they didn't have to. They understood each other now. That night, as the cold returned, Liari offered the sleeping bag again. Jake smiled. "Thanks." As they lay inside again, he whispered, "We'll get out of here. Somehow." Liari didn't answer. But she didn't let go of his hand. Unspoken secrets. Jake woke up before the sun. The light on Zariah 7 was strange. It wasn't like Earth. The sunrise was slow and green, like someone turning on a lamp underwater. Liari was still asleep beside him in the sleeping bag. Her silver hair shone like metal in the soft morning light. Her face looked peaceful, but Jake noticed something else. She was talking in her sleep. Whispers, in her language, fast and soft. Jake leaned in, trying to understand. Mission failed. Not alone, she said. Then her eyes opened. She stared at Jake. For a moment, they both froze. Bad dream? Jake asked. Liari didn't answer. She sat up quickly and looked around. Her eyes scanned the trees like a soldier checking for danger. Jake didn't press her, but something felt off. All day, Liari was quiet. She barely spoke. She kept checking. Her scanner. Sometimes she looked up at the sky like she was expecting something or someone to come. Jake tried to fix the small comms device from his ship. If he could get it working, maybe he could send a signal. But it was broken bad. No power, no antenna. He walked back to Liari, who was sitting on a rock looking at the forest. I think I found some wire that might help, he said. She didn't respond. Jake sat beside her. You okay? She finally looked at him. You trust me? The question surprised him. I mean, yeah. Should I not? Liari didn't speak. She just stood up and walked toward the crash site. Jake followed. Back at the wreck, Liari dug through what was left of her own escape pod. It had burned, less than his. Most of it was melted, but she pulled out a small black box. It looked like a beacon. Jake stepped closer. Is that a locator? Can it send a signal? She hesitated, then shook her head. Broken. Jake reached out to look, but she pulled it back fast. He frowned. Why are you hiding it? Liari stared at the box, then slowly opened a secret compartment. Inside was a strange metal badge. It had a symbol, a red circle with 3 silver lines. Jake had seen something like it before, during the war. That's military, he said. You're not just some explorer, are you? Liari didn't answer. Jake stepped back. Did you cause the crash? She looked up fast. No, I was sent to protect. Jake raised his voice a little. Protect who? Me? No. Peace. She took a deep breath. Mission was to stop war. I failed. Jake sat down on a piece of broken metal. His mind was racing. So you're a soldier? Liari nodded. Then why didn't you say anything? She looked away. Because my people might come, not to help, to erase. Jake stared at her. Erase what? Us. Later that night, they made a new fire and sat close again. The cold was worse now. The scanner showed a storm coming in 2 days. They had to decide, stay and hope for rescue, or move toward the mountains. Jake poked at the fire with a stick. If your people come, will they kill me? Liari didn't answer for a long time. Then, softly, she said, if they know I helped you, they will kill me too. Jake looked at her. He didn't know what to say. Liari held the beacon in her hands, looking at it like it was a heavy stone. Jake noticed something strange about the box. A small, blinking light, very faint, still pulsed in the corner. It's not dead, he said. That's a tracking signal, right? Liari looked scared. Yes, but signal weak. Maybe not reach sky. Jake stood up. Then we need to move. Find higher ground. Liari agreed. But just as they were packing their things, Jake found something odd in her bag. A small chip. It had the same red symbol as the badge. When he picked it up, it lit up for a second and played a voice. Distorted, alien. But one word stood out in English. Target, human. Jake dropped it. He looked at Liari, shocked, her eyes filled with pain. Old mission, before I knew you, before I changed. Jake's hands shook. So I was the target? She didn't deny it, but she stepped forward and held out her hand. Now, I protect. Jake didn't know whether to run or take her hand. The forest rustled behind them. Something was moving again. The growl returned, closer now. They grabbed their gear. Whatever secrets Lyari held, whatever her past was. Jake knew one thing for sure. They were not safe, and something was coming. The creatures in the mist came without warning. One moment the forest was clear. The next, it was gone. Trees, rocks, and sky disappeared behind a thick white fog. Everything turned quiet, too quiet. Jake stood still, holding his breath. He could barely see Lyari just a few steps ahead. Her figure was soft and ghost-like in the fog. Her green eyes glowed slightly. "Stay close," she whispered. "Don't make sound." Jake nodded, even though she couldn't see him well. The scanner in her hand flickered. Lights blinked fast. Something was moving out there. Jake's voice was a whisper. "What is this mist?" Lyari didn't answer right away. She knelt and touched the ground. "Not natural," she said. "It follows sound, smell, fear." Jake's stomach turned. "You mean it's alive?" "No," she replied softly. "But things inside it are." The mist wrapped around them like a blanket. It was cold and wet. Jake's suit started to feel heavy. Each step made a soft squish sound on the mossy ground. Then, a new sound came. Click, 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 sharp, repeating, like claws on metal. Jake froze. "Did you hear that?" Lyari turned slowly. She raised her hand, signaling him to stay, though the sound came again, closer this time. Click, 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 then silence. Jake felt like something was watching him. He couldn't see it, but his body knew. Then a shape moved in the fog. Tall, thin, it had too many legs. It didn't walk, it slid. Jake grabbed Lyari's arm. "What is that?" She spoke one word. "Watchers." Suddenly a bright red eye blinked in the mist, then another, and another. 3 creatures stepped out of the fog. Their skin was black and wet, like it had never felt sunlight. Their arms were long and sharp like blades. They didn't have mouths, but they made a low humming sound that shook the air. One of them tilted its head, then it pointed, at Jake. Lyari didn't wait. She threw a small orb into the ground. It exploded into light, bright and loud. "Run!" she yelled. Jake turned and followed her. They sprinted through the mist, dodging trees, jumping over rocks. Behind them, the creatures gave chase. Fast, silent, deadly. The sound of clicking claws echoed everywhere. They ran until the mist broke, and light returned. The creatures didn't follow them out of the fog. They stopped at the edge of it, just standing, watching. Jake leaned against a tree, panting hard. "What the hell were those?" Lyari sat on a rock, her face pale. "Long ago we found this planet, sent teams, scientists, soldiers. Many didn't return." Jake looked back at the fog. "Why would anyone live here?" "Resources," she said. "Power." But the planet had protectors. Jake understood. The Watchers weren't just monsters, they were defenders, defending their home. Later, as the sun went down, Jake and Lyari set up a small camp far from the mist. They used rocks and branches to build a circle. A weak fire burned in the center. Jake sat beside it, arms crossed. "Why do they want me?" Lyari shook her head. "They don't want you, they want silence. You are noise." Jake didn't like that answer. Then Lyari pulled out her scanner again. She showed him something. A map. Blurry and incomplete, but it showed a tall rock formation not far from them. It reached high into the sky. "Signal can reach there," she said. "Maybe rescue." Jake nodded. "Let's go tomorrow." But Lyari looked nervous. "Watchers are hunting now. They saw you. They remember." Jake looked at his hand. It was still shaking. He tried to laugh. Lucky me. That night, as they shared the sleeping bag again, the wind blew hard through the trees. The forest moaned like it was alive. Jake couldn't sleep. He whispered, "Do they ever stop hunting?" Liari answered, eyes closed. "Only if we stop moving." Jake didn't like that either. Suddenly, he remembered something. Back at the crash site, the watchers didn't come close until he started using the comms device. They hunted sound. He whispered, "Wait, what if it's the tech? Maybe it makes noise they can hear." Liari opened her eyes. "Yes. Old technology, not silent. They hear machines." Jake sat up. "Then we leave it behind." Liari blinked. "Then, no signal, no rescue." Jake looked out into the night. "Rescue won't matter if we're dead." Just before dawn, they packed their things. But Jake noticed something strange. There were claw marks, fresh ones, on a tree near their camp. But they hadn't heard a thing during the night. "They're learning," Liari said. Jake swallowed, hard. "That's not good." Liari looked up at the sky. Clouds were moving fast. The storm was coming. No time left. They had to go. The creatures were watching, and they were getting smarter. A bond forged in fire was the only light left. The storm had swallowed the sky. Rain hit the forest like bullets. Wind howled through the trees. The world had turned wild. Jake and Liari sat under a small rock shelf soaked in cold. The fire they built was weak, but it kept them alive. Neither of them spoke. They were too tired, too hunted. Suddenly, a tree cracked and fell in the distance. The forest screamed again. Jake reached for his metal stick, his only weapon. Liari held the scanner tight, her injured leg shaking. Her face was pale. The storm wasn't just weather, it was war. "Will it find us?" Jake asked. Liari looked into the flames. "If it wants to, yes." They both knew what "it" meant. The watchers didn't need eyes. They followed heat, fear, movement. The creatures had not stopped. They were always out there. And now, they were getting closer. Lightning flashed. For 1 second, Jake saw something on the tree line. Tall, still, watching. Then it vanished into the dark. His heart raced. "They're here." Liari nodded. "We can't stay." Jake stood up. "We can't run either. You can barely walk." She looked away. "Leave me." Jake stared at her. "What?" "Go to the tower," she said. "Send the signal. You still have a chance." He stepped closer, angry. "I'm not leaving you." Liari's voice was cold. "If you don't, we both die." Jake grabbed her arm. "You saved my life twice. You fed me. You shared your warmth. You think I'm going to walk away now?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet. Jake saw something then, not an alien. Not a soldier, just a girl. Hurt, scared, alone. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. "We leave together," he said. "Or not at all." By morning, the storm had passed. But the forest was worse now, darker, flooded, full of broken trees and deep mud. They walked slowly. Jake helped Liari lean on him. Her leg was worse, bleeding again. Hours passed. The tower came into view, a black needle rising from a cliff ahead. Old, broken, but tall enough to reach the clouds. "We're close," Jake said. But Liari stopped. Her scanner beeped fast. She showed Jake the screen. 4 dots, moving, fast, toward them. "They followed us," she whispered. Jake looked around. "We need to hide." Too late. From the trees, the watchers came. This time there were more. Not 3. 6. Their red eyes blinked through the trees. They spread out, silent, like shadows. Jake grabbed Liari's arm. "Run." They limped toward the tower as fast as they could. Branches hit their faces. Mud pulled at their feet. The creatures followed. No sound, just the wind and the fear in Jake's chest. The tower door was broken. They climbed over fallen stone and metal. Inside it was dark and cold. Broken screens, cables, old tech covered. In dust, Layari collapsed. Jake pulled her into a corner. He found a pipe and held it tight, ready to fight. Then, silence again. Jake waited. Nothing came. He peeked outside. The watchers had stopped at the door, not moving, just watching. Jake whispered, "Why don't they come in?" Layari coughed. "They fear what's inside." Jake looked around. "Like, what?" She pointed at a faded sign on the wall. Jake wiped off the dust. "Quarantine research zone." He stared. "What kind of research?" Layari's eyes were heavy. "Things worse than the Watchers." As night fell, Jake found a power switch, old, but it worked. The tower lights flickered on, weak yellow, but enough to see. He placed Layari on a table, tried to stop the bleeding. She was shaking now. Fever. Jake opened his suit and pressed his warmth against her. "Stay with me," he said. Her eyes fluttered. "Why do you care?" He looked at her, this alien girl who had once been sent to target him. "You could have killed me," he said. "But you didn't. You shared your food, your shelter, your secrets. I've met humans who wouldn't do that." She gave a weak smile. "You're not like other humans." Jake laughed. "You're not like other aliens." Outside, the creatures circled the tower, but they didn't enter. Inside, Jake held her hand. Fire burned in the corner. It was small, but it was hope. The bond between them was no longer strange. It was real, and it had been forged not in words, but in fire. Tomorrow, he would climb the tower. Tomorrow, he would send the signal. But tonight, he would keep her safe, even if it killed him. Signal to the stars. The stars were dying. At least that's how it looked from the top of the tower. The clouds above Zariah 7 were thick and slow. Red lightning flashed in the distance. The sky cracked like old glass. Jake stood at the edge of the tower, wind pushing against him. His hands were cold. His breath was smoke. Behind him, Layari was still unconscious. Her face was pale, her skin burning with fever. She needed help, soon, and this was their only chance. Jake stared at the old control panel. Rusted, worn, covered in dust and alien symbols. It looked dead, but deep inside, a faint hum still pulsed like a heart refusing to stop. Jake took a deep breath. "Okay, let's do this." He pressed a button. Nothing. He hit it harder. Sparks. The screen flickered. A faded logo appeared. Z7 Deep Comms Array. Jake smiled. Yes. He flipped a few switches. The tower groaned. Then a small dish on the roof turned toward the sky. But something beeped. Power critical. 3% remaining. Jake's smile vanished. He needed more energy. He ran back down to Layari and opened her bag. Inside was the small beacon she'd hidden. The one she said was broken. It still blinked faintly. He grabbed it and ran back up. The wind was stronger now. The storm wasn't over. Jake wired the beacon into the tower's console. He didn't know if it would work, but it was all he had. The panel lit up, signal ready. Jake typed in a message. Human crash survivor. Alien injured. Need help. Coordinates uploaded. He stared at the screen. Send signal? He hovered his finger over the button and paused. What if the wrong people heard it? What if Layari's enemies came instead of friends? He thought of her smile, her courage, how she offered him safety when he had nothing. He pressed the button. Signal sent. Then everything went black. Back below, Layari gasped awake. Jake knelt beside her. Hey, it's okay. I did it. I sent the signal. Her eyes were wide with fear. Who did you call? I don't know, Jake said honestly. Whoever's listening. Layari grabbed his arm. You don't understand. If my people hear that, they won't come to rescue. Jake's heart dropped. Then who will? She whispered. The hunters. The ground shook. They looked outside. The Watchers, 12 of them now, were circling the tower. But this time, they weren't looking at the tower. They were looking up, into the sky. A soft hum filled the air, low at first, then louder. Something was coming. Liari sat up slowly, pain in her eyes. "It's not them," she said. "It's worse." Jake helped her stand. "What do we do?" She pulled a knife from her belt. "We fight." A light broke through the clouds. Not a star, not lightning. A ship, black, long, silent. No lights, no sound. Jake stared at it. "That's not a rescue ship." Liari shook her head. "That's a collector." Jake didn't like the sound of that. "What do they collect?" She looked at him. "Living things." The Watchers screamed. For the first time, Jake heard fear in their voices. The creatures ran into the forest, hiding in the trees. Even they knew what was coming. The ship opened slowly. A beam of green light shot down. Something floated inside it. A shape, a figure. Not a robot. Not a soldier. A being. Its face was covered. Its body long and thin. It wore something like armor made of bone. It floated above the ground. No footsteps. No breath. Jake and Liari stood still. The being raised a hand. Liari whispered, "Don't move." Too late. Jake stepped forward. The being turned its head and spoke, not in a voice, not in sound, but inside Jake's mind. "You broke silence." Jake stepped back, terrified. The being hovered forward. "Now silence must return." It raised its hand. Jake felt his heart stop. But Liari jumped between them. "No," she shouted. "He's not the enemy." The being looked at her. "You protect him." She nodded. "Yes, I choose to." There was silence. Then the being lowered its hand. Then both must be erased. Jake pulled out a flare, his last one, and lit it. Bright red fire burst into the sky. The being screamed, not in pain, but in anger. It flew back. Jake grabbed Liari. "We run, now." They sprinted into the forest as the ship fired a beam behind them. Trees exploded, ground turned to glass. The forest caught fire. Everything was burning, but they kept running. Together. They didn't stop until morning. They found a cave. Cold, safe, hidden. Jake wrapped Liari in the sleeping bag. He sat beside her, shaking. "I thought I called for help," he said. She smiled weakly. "Sometimes help brings war." Jake looked out of the cave where the sky still glowed red. His signal had been heard. But by who else? And what would come next? The price of rescue. The sky was burning. Red smoke hung over the forest. The collector's ship had left deep scars in the ground, long, black, and still glowing. The trees were gone. The birds were silent. The wind had changed. It smelled like metal and fear. Jake sat at the cave's entrance, staring into the ruined world. He had never felt so far from Earth. So small. So helpless. Inside the cave, Liari slept. Her skin was hot, her breathing fast. She needed real help now. Not herbs, not hope. Real medicine. Real rescue. But the last rescue he called nearly got them both killed. Suddenly, Jake's earpiece crackled. Human signal detected. Identity code confirmed. He jumped up. "Hello? Who is this?" A pause. "Rescue team en route. ETA. 4 hours. Stay alive." Jake's heart leapt. But Liari wasn't human. He looked at her. What would the team do if they saw her? Help. Her, or worse? He walked outside, heart pounding. This was the moment he had prayed for, but now it felt like a trap. An hour passed, then 2. Jake cleaned her wounds, used everything he had, but her fever was getting worse. She opened her eyes briefly. "They're coming, aren't they?" Jake nodded. "Yes, but I don't know if we can trust them." She smiled weakly. "Humans don't like my kind." Jake sat beside her. Then I'll protect you, no matter what. Her hand reached for his. Why? You barely know me. Jake looked her in the eyes. You risked your life for me, again and again. That's all I need to know. They sat in silence. Outside, the wind changed again. Something else was coming. Far above the trees, another ship appeared, smaller, sleek. It flew fast like a needle cutting the sky. Jake stepped out of the cave. The ship hovered above, then slowly lowered to the ground. The door opened. A team stepped out, humans in dark rescue suits with glowing visors. They moved like soldiers. Jake raised his hands. One of them stepped forward. Survivor confirmed. You're Jake Mercer? He nodded. Yes, but I'm not alone. The team leader turned to his crew. Prepare evac. Jake pointed to the cave. There's someone else. She saved me. She's not human, but the leader raised a hand. Repeat that. Jake swallowed. She's from here. She's not a threat. The soldier's voice turned cold. Alien life forms are not part of the mission. Only human rescue. Jake stood, firm. Then changed the mission. The soldiers moved toward the cave. Jake stepped in front of them. She comes too. They raised their weapons. She's infected, one of them said. We can't risk contamination. Jake's voice rose. She's sick because she protected me. She shared her food, her shelter. She's the only reason I'm still alive. The leader looked at him. Your loyalty is noted, but rules are rules. He turned to his team. Sedate the alien. We'll contain her for study. Jake's blood turned cold. No. The leader stared. Excuse me? Jake stepped back toward the cave. I won't let you take her like that. The soldiers aimed. Then, Layari appeared behind Jake. She was weak, but standing. No need, she said. I'll go. Just don't hurt him. Jake turned. Layari, don't. She gave him a sad smile. This is the price of rescue. The soldiers moved in, weapons ready. Jake clenched his fists. But then, boom, the ground shook. Everyone froze. From the smoke, the watchers returned. Not 12, 20. They surrounded the area. The rescue team pointed weapons in all directions. The watchers didn't attack, they stood like statues, then the air turned cold. From above, a second collector ship appeared. Jake looked up. No. Not again. The soldiers looked at each other. What is that? The collector's voice echoed across the forest. You brought war to a silent world. Now silence must return. The watchers screamed louder than ever. The collector ship opened its belly and began to pull everything into the sky, rocks, trees, metal, bodies. The soldiers screamed. Jake grabbed Layari. Run! But the gravity beam pulled at them hard. Jake lost his grip. Layari was floating upward, eyes wide. Jake. He jumped, grabbed her hand, held on with everything he had. The wind roared. The light grew stronger. But Jake shouted back, I won't let go. Then, darkness. The beam vanished. The collector ship pulled away. Gone. The watchers disappeared into the smoke. Silence returned. Jake and Layari collapsed on the ground. The rescue team was gone. No ship. No signal. No hope. Just the two of them. Alone again. But alive. Together. Jake helped Layari sit up. You okay? She coughed. You didn't let go. He smiled. Not my style. Layari looked at the sky. You lost your rescue. Jake shook his head. No, I found my reason to stay. The last stand on Zariah 7 ash was falling from the sky. Not snow, not rain, ash. The forest was gone, burned to black. The trees were twisted shapes, smoke covered. The land like a heavy blanket. Jake stood alone at the edge of a crater, his boots in the dust, his heart like stone. Beside him, Layari was on one knee, her face pale, her breath short. They had nowhere left to run. The collector ship had returned, and this time, it didn't come alone. Above them, 3 black ships floated in the sky like silent gods. The Watchers had vanished. The human rescue team was gone. It was just Jake. Just Layari. And the end. Jake turned to her. "We can't hide anymore." Layari looked at the sky. "No, we fight." He helped her stand. They had one weapon left, the ancient power core they'd pulled from the ruined tower. It wasn't built to destroy ships, but it could blind them, maybe for a moment, maybe just long enough. Jake looked at the flashing lights on the core. "If we overload it?" Layari nodded. "A flash strong enough to block their vision, maybe even burn them." Jake smirked. "Sounds like a plan." She tilted her head. "A bad plan, but it's our plan." They moved fast. They climbed the last hill where the signal tower once stood. Now it was rubble. Perfect. The enemy wouldn't expect 2 tired survivors to fight back. They placed the core on the tallest rock. Jake connected wires. His hands shook. "Layari, watch the sky." The ships were shifting. They were aiming again. A beam began to form. Jake shouted, "Now!" Layari hit the power. The core screamed. Lights exploded. Blue, red, white. The ground shook. The sky tore open. For 3 seconds, everything was light. Then, silence. The ships froze. Their beams died. Smoke filled the air, and for the first time, the collectors retreated. They turned slowly, then vanished into the clouds. Gone. Jake blinked, coughing. He turned. "Layari?" She was lying on the ground, too still. He ran to her. "No, no, no." She opened her eyes. "Barely. You did it," she whispered. "No. We did," he said. Her hand found his. "You should go now." Jake shook his head. "I already told you. I stay. But your people didn't come for me." He looked at the burned world around them. "They don't deserve what we've built here." Weeks passed. The forest began to heal. Slowly, the Watchers never returned. The collectors stayed away. Jake and Layari built a small home near the river. It was simple, safe, and peaceful. One night, while watching the stars, Layari spoke softly. "You could leave. Try to reach another signal tower, go home." Jake smiled. "I already did." She looked at him, confused. "You're my home now," he said. And far, far away, beyond the clouds, beyond the wreckage, someone else was watching. The signal Jake had sent still echoed across the stars. It was heard, and soon, others would come. But this time, they wouldn't find a scared human. They'd find 2 survivors, one human, one alien, standing together, ready.